What is going on, guys? It is Sixless here, back with another video. Now today we're actually going to be looking at how to aim with mobile shooting games. We're going to be using COD Mobile as our main thing we talk about, but this will apply basically everything I talk about will apply to any mobile shooter game, or even a lot of the things I talk about will apply to like console games, PC games, but there is a lot of mobile specific things in here. So if you're a PUBG mobile player or a COD mobile player, this video is for you. But once again, if you just want to learn how to aim on any game, this will be hugely helpful. Also, if you ever enjoy the video, make sure to drop a like and also subscribe if you'd like to see content like this in the future. Anyways, let's move on. Now this video will be organized from kind of beginner stuff, and it'll get more complicated as we go, and then at the end I'll kind of wrap everything up. But if you'd like to jump to specific sections, I will have all the timestamps on the screen right now, but I do highly recommend watching from start to finish, as that will be the best way to understand the entire video. And if you watch the entire video, you're going to be leaving with a lot learned, and your aim is automatically going to be way better, I guarantee it. So there's actually 3 ways to aim inside of a mobile shooter. The first way of aiming is aiming with your thumb or your aiming finger, and basically all this is to look around and aim around. You just move your finger on your screen. The other way is aiming with your joystick. Now this is basically the same as aiming with your thumb, but you're going to be moving your joystick around, and that's going to move where your player is, which will also move where your player is aiming. I'll talk more about joystick aiming soon because most people don't actually even think about it. And the third thing is really unique to mobile, and that's aiming with gyroscope. Gyroscope is essentially if you move your device, you'll move inside of the game. Gyro is a very advanced technique that you see a lot of pro players using in PUBG Mobile and COD Mobile. And it's something that will require its own video just because it's such an in-depth technique. But that is a way to aim. And once again, I'll be doing an entire separate video on that. So make sure to drop a sub if you do want to see that when it comes out. And what this graphic is going to show is why it's hard to aim at long distance, and then also why it's a little bit better to use the joystick to aim sometimes, and especially at longer distances. Now what you can see is when you're really close, you can aim back and forth quite a bit, and you're going to be basically always on target. But if we do the exact same movement and zoom out a little farther, what you can tell is that the farther away the enemies are, a little bit of movement makes a really big difference. So as you can tell, for the player that's really close up to you, you can move quite a bit or aim around quite a bit, and you're still going to be like hitting the player. But the people that are really far, those guys are super far apart, and just by doing that little bit of movement in your aim, you're going to be shooting 2 completely different places. So if we go ahead and do a 1v1 situation, but the person is really far, what you can actually do to aim at that person, as opposed to trying to like move and aim on them, because it gets a little bit more difficult as I just showed at range. Instead, what you can do is just use your joystick and slightly move over. A good way to actually represent this, I'll just show you a clip from Sixless. I'll show his Twitter handle right now. He's a professional PUBG mobile player on Team SSG. And Sixless is actually a full gyro player, but if you watch this clip, he kind of does something that I'm talking about. So what happens here is Sixless is not aimed on the target that he wants to hit. He needs to make a slight adjustment, and instead of actually making the adjustment with gyro or his finger, because it's a really small adjustment, all he has to do is just move his joystick over just a tad. And so if you look right now at his joystick, he just barely pushes it over, but it's just enough to move his aim onto the player, and then he pulls the trigger and shoots the gun. So this kind of shows how your movement can actually affect your aim. Up close, it won't affect your aim that much just because they're so close to people that you might as well just aim with your finger. But as you can tell, the farther you get, the more moving your joystick actually matters with your aim to get those nice micro adjustments side to side. All right, so the next thing I want to touch on is the concept of pre-aiming. And basically what pre-aiming is you put your crosshair or your line of sight where people are more than likely going to be. So what this graphic actually shows is a proper way of pre-aiming. So you can tell as your player moves around corners, he's constantly looking where people could be. Now obviously you don't always know where people are, you just have to assess what the most likely chance is for where people are going to be. So essentially what you're doing is just making sure if there is someone there, you're already aiming right at them. You don't have to like try to flick your aim, you don't have to move your aim over to the enemy, you're just already aiming right where they are. And you should have the advantage because you started aiming at them as soon as you saw them. You didn't have to try to waste time aiming towards them, you were just already aiming right at them. Now here's a graphic representation of what would be the wrong thing to do, so you can tell as you go around the corners, if you're not looking at where you're going, you're gonna get shot, because then you're not looking at the enemy, you're not gonna know they're there, you're not gonna be able to shoot them. So this is what you don't want to be doing. Now, pre-aiming doesn't only apply with movement. Pre-aiming is also a concept of aiming at people. So before you scope in your gun, you want to put your crosshair as close as you can to where someone is. This is actually massive for quick scoping. This is massive for basically anything that involves aim. Pre-aiming is going to be a massive aspect to hitting your shots, because when you're not scoped in, you're able to move your crosshair all over the place. You can do 360-degree turns, all kinds of stuff, because your sensitivity is a lot higher than if you were scoped in with a sniper. If you're scoped in with a sniper and you aim down your sights, if someone is really far away, then like you can aim and kind of make micro adjustments, but you're not going to be able to do a 360-degree turn really easily because you're super zoomed in. So when you're not scoped in, you want to be putting your crosshair or line of sight on targets. That way, when you actually do scope in, you'll already be on that target. And if you're not on it, you can just make a few micro adjustments and get your aim perfect before you shoot or start shooting your gun. So one of the biggest mistakes I see new players make is that they'll scope in their gun when they see a player, and then they'll try to aim over to the player. And that's really difficult, because as soon as you scope in, there's a good chance you're so zoomed in, you won't even be able to see the player anymore. So the trick is you want to move your crosshair on them as soon as you see them and then scope in. You don't scope in and then move your crosshair towards them. This is a really important tip to improve your aim, because then automatically you're going to be, as soon as you start aiming, you're already on the player, as opposed to aiming in and then moving over towards them, which is very difficult even for really good players. And something that I'm not going to go super in depth about, because it is a really complicated mechanic that really depends gun to gun, and it would take me probably like an hour to explain exactly how to do it, is leading your shots. Now, in Call of Duty Mobile multiplayer, don't even worry about this. Everything I'm about to say doesn't apply to COD Mobile multiplayer. But in PUBG Mobile, the Battle Royale, and in Call of Duty Mobile, the Battle Royale, if you're shooting at someone that's really far away, you actually have to lead your shot, which means you have to shoot where they're gonna be, because the bullet has to like fly over to them, and it takes some time for the bullet to travel. And this goes for bullet drop too, which means your bullet going lower than where your crosshair is because of gravity. So you have to be leading them and shooting where they're gonna be in a couple milliseconds. That's basically what leading your shots are. So if someone's really far away and you're not hitting shots, it's because you need to be shooting where they're gonna be. You have to predict where they're moving. That's basically what leading your shots are and bullet drop is, but we're not gonna go super in depth because it depends game to game and gun to gun. Alright, so next up is your sensitivity. Now basically sensitivity is just the relationship between your finger touching the screen and how much you'll actually move inside the game. So a high sensitivity means if you barely move your finger, you'll move a lot inside the game, and a low sensitivity means if you move your finger a lot, you'll barely move inside the game. So I actually made an entire 15-minute video explaining the best possible sensitivity for Call of Duty Mobile. The link for that video will be down below, but I'll just go ahead and show you guys about a 1-minute recap of what I said in that video. But once again, if you want to see how I decided all these numbers and all that, and like really want to learn how to make the best sensitivity, the link for that video will be down below. But anyway, here's that short clip. So the very first thing you want to do before you even start this is go to settings, go to sensitivity, and then for your rotation mode at the very top, go to fixed speed. And basically what this is going to do is make your aim more consistent. If you have speed or distance acceleration on, your aim won't be as consistent. So definitely do fixed speed as your very first step. This is very important in the next part. All right, so the next thing you want to do is go ahead and load into a game. Personally, I did a private match between my phone and my iPad just so I'd be undisturbed. So basically what you want to do is when you load in the match, you want to try to do 180-degree turns. Now, if you're doing less than 180-degree turns, then go ahead and bump up your sensitivity. And if you're doing more than 180-degree turns, go ahead and lower your sensitivity. And when you do this, you want to be holding your device like you normally would be, so just a very comfortable position. And then just go ahead and swipe your aiming finger from one side to the other side, just like you can see in my hand cam. And then hopefully you'll find a number where you feel very comfortable and are able to easily do 180-degree turns. Personally, it was 70 for my iPhone XS Max. So next up is calculating all your other sensitivities. Now, I made this super easy. I made a calculator on my website. The website link is themobilesense.com. The link will be down below if you want to go to it. But then literally all you do is you take your standard sensitivity, you type it into the calculator as you can see here, and then boom, it'll tell you your ADS, your tactic scope, your sniper scope if you want to be very accurate, and then it tells you your sniper scope sensitivity if you want to be a quick scoper. Now, it also includes a Battle Royale section 2 for the Call of Duty Battle Royale, so all you have to do is the same thing, just type in 70, and then you'll have all your sensitivities. I'm thinking about adding a PUBG Mobile calculator in the future too, so if you want to check to see if this website has that, feel free. Once again, link will be down below. The next step is take all your camera sensitivities and then copy them over to your firing sensitivities so they are identical. Now, this will get all your sensitivities basically perfectly matched up, so they all work very well. Okay, so now let's talk about recoil control. So recoil in basically all shooter games, including COD Mobile, PUBG, and PUBG Mobile. Recoil in all of those games have two aspects to it. Number one is the vertical recoil. Now what vertical recoil is basically as you shoot, the gun is going to start going up. It's going to continually kick upwards. The other recoil is horizontal recoil, in which as you shoot your gun, it'll either go left or right. Now the difference between vertical and horizontal recoil is that vertical recoil can only go one direction basically. It's just going to constantly go up. Now granted, every time you shoot a bullet, the time in between the next bullet, your gun will slowly go down. But the time that it's going down is really like nothing, so it doesn't affect how you control your recoil. But with horizontal recoil, the recoil could either go left, it could go right. You don't really know which direction it's going to go, so it's almost impossible to compensate for it. So granted, some games actually do have set recoil patterns, and basically what that means is the recoil will be the same every time. So every time you shoot the gun, it'll go up and to the right, as an example. PUBG Mobile and COD Mobile do not have this mechanic. The recoil is going to be similar every time, but it could still randomly go left, it could go right. It's going to be different like every single time. So essentially, to hit your target more often, there's actually two ways of recoil control. The first method is simply pull down. So essentially when your gun is shooting and it's going upwards, then your crosshair is going to keep going up. So to keep your crosshair steady right where you want it, you're going to have to pull your finger downwards, as you guys can see in the video. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to keep your aim and your crosshair where you want it to go. Now to actually get good at this is you want to have a sensitivity, and you kind of want to stay on that sensitivity, because controlling recoil becomes muscle memory and your muscles get used to how much you have to pull down for each gun that you use. So if you constantly change your sensitivity, you're going to be messing up your muscle memory. Another thing you can do is you can hop into a game and just start shooting a wall with the gun and just try to keep your bullets in a little tight pattern. Now, keep in mind, again, it's hard to control side-to-side recoil, so horizontal recoil. So if your pattern is really like it's going to the left and going to the right a lot, that's fine. Mainly what you're trying to do is just make sure your aim isn't going up and down. You just want to keep it in a nice little group. So one thing that's unique about COD Mobile is after a certain amount of bullets, the gun won't really have any more vertical recoil, and it'll just start going side to side. So if you look at this recoil tree right now, you can see with the ARs, the recoil will go up, and then all of a sudden at the top, it'll just start going side to side a ton. So you got to practice this. It's not going to be just right away, just start pulling your finger down and then you have no recoil. You're going to have to go ahead and practice shooting your gun, go ahead and like hop in some games and just shoot a wall and just try to get your aim in a nice little group. And the more you do this, the more you build up your muscle memory, the better you're going to be at actually having recoil control. Now, the other method of recoil control is bursting, and you're going to be wanting to do this at longer ranges. Basically what bursting is you shoot the gun, you stop shooting for a couple milliseconds, and you start shooting again. And basically what this is going to do is it's going to kind of stop the side-to-side recoil, and it's also going to kind of lower your recoil in general. So you just shoot like 3-4 shots, whatever, and then you stop shooting, and then your crosshair will return back to the center, and then you start bursting again. Hopefully this isn't too confusing. You can kind of see the video that I'm playing you right now kind of shows what bursting is. You don't want to do this up close because you need to be shooting your gun full auto up close. You got to be hitting every single shot, but at longer ranges where you want to be trying to be a little bit more accurate because it's a longer range, so recoil is going to hurt you more. You want to be bursting a little bit more often, especially with guns that have a ton of kick. So that is essentially recoil control. The biggest thing is just getting a lot of muscle memory with your guns. Another thing is if you use a Type 25 with attachments like a foregrip and you have like perks like hardened and stuff like that, it's going to be a lot different than, or sorry, toughness, not hardened. It's going to be a lot different than if you have a Type 25 with absolutely no attachments, no sight, things like that. And to add on that, adding a foregrip on your gun and adding toughness is going to be two of the biggest items or perks that will reduce your recoil. And adding a good sight will also help as well. For most people, that's going to be the red dot sight. All right, so now let's talk about hip firing a little bit. So essentially what hip firing is when you shoot your gun, but you're not ADSing. And ADSing, once again, is when you're using the sight on your gun or the iron sights. So hip firing is never a good idea at mid to long range, just because the chance of you actually hitting your shots on someone when you're hip firing is very, very low. Now the reason for this is because when you're hip firing, your bullets can go basically anywhere. It can go all over the place, but most of the time it's going to be staying in a tight group, and you can see where your shots have a chance of going by looking at your crosshair spread. So right now we're using the Type 25 with no Hipfire helping attachments, and as you can tell, the bullets are kind of going all over the place, but they're staying within the crosshairs, which as you shoot get wider and wider. So the longer you shoot, the more spread your bullets can actually have. So certain guns have a lot of hipfire spread, and because of this, they're guns you don't really want to hipfire very much unless you're up close to someone. So guns like the MSMC, the AK, the Type 25, these guns have a lot of hipfire spread, whereas guns like the AKS, the AK-117, and a few other guns are going to have a lot tighter of a hipfire, and then obviously the laser sight is also going to help you tighten up this spread as well. So the general rule of thumb is if your target is taking up your crosshair, or even bigger than your crosshair, then you can hit fire and you'll be okay. As you play, you kind of get used to this. The reason you actually want to hit fire over aiming in a lot of the times is because when you aim in, you're really zoomed in, your sensitivity might get a little lower depending on your sensitivity settings, and just things like that. It's not really good to aim in at people that are super up close. And also you can't shoot while you're lifting up your gun to actually aim in, so you're gonna miss out on valuable time where you could be shooting your gun. So hip fire is just gonna be really good when you're up close. And if you're wondering the difference between a hip firing up close versus hip firing at range, this graphic should kind of help you understand. Another tip I forgot to include is adding a button in the middle of your screen. For me, I did the emote button, but I've seen people do like the sound button, or not the sound button, sorry, the settings button. I've seen people do the auto run button. I personally wouldn't do that because I actually use that button. But what I did is I put the emote button on the very middle of the screen, and then you make it as small as you possibly can. And you don't have to do this in PUBG Mobile because PUBG Mobile actually already has like a little dot right there. But COD Mobile does not, so kind of got to create it for ourselves. And what this is going to help you do is keep track of where the center of your screen is. So when I was talking about the pre-aiming thing, this will help you pre-aim because you always just put that little dot wherever you want to be looking. So when you're quick scoping, what you'll do is you'll put that on their head, little emote button, and then you press the aim button and you'll be aimed right on their head immediately. And this can help you quick scope. Okay, so right now I'm actually looking at my list of everything I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about pre-aim, recoil control, sensitivity, muscle memory, device. Okay, device is one thing I haven't talked about. So basically what I mean by device is the bigger device you have and the less lag you have, the better your aim will actually be. So obviously that's going to be really out of your control, but if you do want to have like the ultimate gaming and aiming experience, a newer iPad or newer tablet is always going to do a lot better than like a really old teeny phone. But one thing that sets that apart is gyroscope with a phone is actually very comparable to iPad with no gyroscope. So I just wanted to let you guys know, if you do have a phone and really want to get good, make sure to tune into my gyroscope video, which should be coming fairly soon. I also wanted to talk about bursting, which we did. Movement and positioning we haven't talked about. Basically, it's just try to move a lot, try to slide around and do stuff like that. I'll probably do a video talking about advanced movement tips, but movement and positioning, it doesn't affect your aim as much or your recoil or anything. Well, I guess it does kind of affect your recoil. But the main thing I wanted to talk about that was just you're going to be wanting to avoid getting hit so that you're able to hit people, which once again doesn't affect your aim necessarily, but good movement can make sure that you don't die and you're able to hit someone else. Once again, I'll be doing a whole video on movement because this video is already way too long. So movement and positioning will be coming in a future video in another pro guide. But that is it for my aim video. I hope you guys learned a lot from this. If you guys are hearing my voice right now, that means you guys stuck through until the very end. So you guys are definitely looking to improve. So I salute you guys. And once again, I'll be coming out with more guides and more fun gameplays and all kinds of stuff. I do all kinds of COD Mobile content on the channel. So if you guys enjoy, make sure to drop a like and a sub, which I've said like 4 times now. But yeah, it seriously means a lot to me. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Peace.